Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of Catalyzing Change Week. I'm Sheher Bano, the Asia Chapter Coordinator at Catalyst Now. Today, we're diving into a topic that sits at the intersection of technology, social impact, and ethics. Our session is Artificial Intelligence for Changemakers in the Asia Pacific. Across Asia Pacific and other parts of the global south, we're seeing a rapid technological change. Yet, these same regions face difficulty in accessing infrastructure and equity. So today's dialogue will focus on artificial intelligence harnessed not just as a tool of innovation, but as a force for inclusion, empowerment, and ethical transformation. So I'll be playing a quick video of our day 4.
Welcome to day 4 of Catalyzing Change Week 2025. The UNHCR in April 2025 recorded that there were approximately 122.1 million forcibly displaced people in the world. How do we provide support services, assimilate refugees into societal systems? How do they afford basic rights, even as they flee widespread violence, hunger, and conflict? Our theme for today reflects the issues around civic participation, peace, and justice in the journeys of refugees and migrants. Change is only lasting when people have a voice in shaping it. Civic participation is about more than being present. It is about building systems where every voice carries weight and where communities can take part in designing their own futures. Peace and justice are the foundations on which all progress depends. They take root when dialogue replaces division and cooperation overcomes conflict. And in the stories of refugees and migrants, we see both struggle and strength. Displacement tests resilience, but it also reveals new possibilities for innovation, solidarity, and renewal when dignity is protected and contributions are valued. This day invites us to listen deeply, to question what justice truly looks like, and to imagine how inclusive societies can be built stronger and more united. Welcome to the sessions presented by Catalyst Now.
So before we begin, a bit of housekeeping. Please keep your video on if you could, and introduce your name and company and where you're from in the chat. Unmute yourself when you're speaking, and if you have technical questions, please directly go to zoom.us support or raise your hand. And most importantly, please enjoy the session. Starting off, so Catalyst Now is a growing network of changemakers dedicated to advancing social innovation and system change. This week has already showcased incredible leadership from across continents, and today's discussion continues that spirit of collaboration and hope. So meet our speakers. So I'm delighted to introduce our incredible panel of speakers. Our first speaker is Shaista Keating, who's the Vice President at TechSoup and a leading expert in technology strategy and innovation. Shaista has worked across the academic, public, private, and nonprofit sectors, including roles as an executive at Arkesson, senior manager at Accenture, and research fellow at the Institute for Strategic Change. Her international experience spans work within the United Nations in Geneva and teaching at Georgetown University and University of South Africa. A Fulbright scholar with degree from UCLA, Georgetown, and Harvard, Shaista brings an extraordinary blend of strategic and human-centered thinking to this conversation. Our second speaker is Ned Lomingora, founder of 387 Labs and a graduate of MIT. Ned is based in New York and is on a mission to increase global adoption of artificial intelligence, particularly in ways that empower organizations and people. And joining us from India, our third speaker is Abhijit K., Digital Solutions Director at Catalyst Now and founder of Rukosh Ecosystem Foundation, which is a nonprofit that has impacted over 1.7 million people through technology-driven solutions and entrepreneurship programs. He's recognized as a World Economic Forum top innovator and a professional fellow by the U.S. Department of State. Abhijit's work exemplifies how technology can create equitable and accessible opportunities for all. So please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to Shaista, Abhijit, and Ned. And so, panel, tell me whenever you're ready and we can start.
Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon.
Hi, everyone. So let's get started with our first question, one that really captures the heart of our conversation today. So, how can AI-driven initiatives help address the access and equity challenges faced by students in the global South, particularly in under-resourced areas or rural contexts? So,
Shaista,
Shaista,
maybe
yeah.
start.
Sounds good. So your video was really compelling. First of all, thank you so much for Sheher and for Abhijit and Catalyst Now for having me today. It's a real honor to be here, and also it sort of is wonderful to reconnect with Asia Pac. I was, obviously I'm Asian, so it's always nice to hear what's happening in the region. So I'm hoping that since we have a small group, we can have a real conversation and you can educate us as much as we share with you. There are so many things about the world and about the digital divide and about AI inciting a digital divide that keep me awake at night. We live in this world where AI is transforming almost all aspects of how we live, and yet it's half of the world, half of humanity cannot even connect, right? The World Bank says 90% of people in high-income countries have access to the internet, while only 25% of people in low-income countries can say the same. The OECD notes that education level, speaking of education, plays a role in this. About 80% of adults that have a higher than a high school level of education use the internet, while only 40% of adults with low or no formal education do. So you can imagine when we talk about the global South, as we call it, or rural spaces, Sheher, that you mentioned, we have a very big hill to climb. And this is the part, whenever I share this statistic, a United Nations report has found that 2/3 of the world's school-aged children do not have internet connections to their homes, let alone the skills that are needed to participate in our interconnected global economy. And sometimes I get literally tears in my eyes when I share this, because that is 1.3 billion children worldwide. And that's not okay. We need to do something about it. And I'm just going to ask a real question of the audience. How many of you are in the service of alleviating poverty or promoting education? Do you want to show a raise of hand, or other causes that would affect children and their families?
I definitely see Asha, Ernest, and they already have their hands up, and Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm sure you're having that heartbreaking effect at the moment, and you do every day when you come to work and you're like, I love my job because I'm making a difference. But we do have a very, very high hill to climb. And I don't think it's simplistic to say that AI will solve everything, because AI cannot solve connectivity. So we have to work together. I would say the most important thing in this moment that we can do is find creators. And, we can talk about the systems breaking and the current state of affairs in the globe and be pessimistic, or we can accept that, hey, these statistics that I pulled up are from a while ago. So the old or the status quo was not necessarily serving these children anyway. So let's not get lost in the conversation of shortage of resources and, political disarray and all those things that, to me, in many ways serve as a distraction to our mission and our purpose. Let's get laser focused on what we can do. And I think the one thing that we can do is to collaborate in a multi-sector way, is to bring everybody to the table. One of the really cool things that I'm doing right now, I look forward to it dearly, is Tata Consultancy is holding a Digital Opportunities Council. and they are attacking some of the key issues related to STEM education, related to job, digital inclusion and workforce readiness. And they've brought together some of the most incredibly brilliant people into this council, and I feel so lucky to be just in the same room as these people. But they span all kinds of companies and nonprofits and areas where we can come together and collectively address issues rather than be redundant in addressing the issues, because there are no resources for us to be redundant. So I would say that multi-sector collaboration is at the top. And then this idea of hope, right? When we talk about children, it's always good to be hopeful. I feel like it's such an important and kind of power, it's just a 4-letter word, but I find it's my second favorite word. It's just the most powerful word in that if we do come together, AI does, or responsible AI does offer this opportunity to leapfrog, to really, once there's connectivity and there's devices and there's skilling, those are the 3 elements that we would need, then AI becomes kind of an opportunity to really fast track education. And one of the examples is Khan Amigo, right? There's also another school that I had researched in New York that was essentially providing each student with a customized homework packet based on their ability to do mathematics, right? And math is such an important thing within AI. I mean, my journey with AI started with linear algebra at UCLA, right? So if we're going to close the AI gap along with the education gap, then math is a great way to begin. And the Khan Academy is doing the same, doing AI in a magnificent way, where you've got this buddy that's kind of walking you through, they have the data worldwide to be able to look at a student and say, these are your holes. Because math is like bricks, right? We form bricks for children, and we don't want a hole in the bricks or the construction doesn't quite come together. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents, is that AI will be very powerful, but I think it's the things around AI that we must insist on to make it accessible to all.
Thank you so much, Shaista. Ned, would you like to add to that? You're not audible. No, still not audible.
Yeah, maybe Ned, you want to just jump off and join in again?
Yeah. Okay. Abhijit, would you like to answer till Ned comes through?
Absolutely. I think thank you, Shiesta, for putting that base out there for us. I have a metric to begin with. So while I was doing this work in the education accessibility space, I came across a startling set of numbers. The first one was during the pandemic, there were 1.4 billion students who were out of school. Uh, and that was a massive number where they could not have access to education. There were literally stories of people selling their cattle or house or stuff just to be able to afford a mobile phone to enable digital learning for their kids. And then so that's one that really opened up my eyes. And out of this, over 700 million students or learners were actually women and girls. So that was a massive shift in the gender parity that came across access to learning. The second metric is more India focused, and I'm sure that in some ways also expands to the South Asian APAC community at large. there's a metric there's a report that says that there are 1 million schools in India that have just one teacher in them, and uh, this is it was depressing actually when I started reading and getting into these reports, but it also gave me an insight that yes, the technologies that are in our hands today are capable of solving this exact same gap, at least to a certain degree. Several years, almost I think 10-15 years back, there was this advertisement that Idea, one of the telecom giants here in the country, showcased, where the then they had hired Abhishek Bachchan to talk about it or film those ads, and he thinks of an idea. He's in a church and he thinks of students who are not able to learn, and then he says, okay, why don't I have a mobile phone in like in a village, and teachers can then by voice telephony teach other students. So sorts of the early Zoom days, but yes, that's the kind of relevance that we require for under-resourced communities, because as Shasta exactly said, we still do not have the kind of internet and device penetration that we need in these geographies. And tools like all these large LLM models are perfectly focused. And now, if you see just the trajectory of everyone is putting across a learning tool, ChatGPT for education, Gemini for students, all of these that are really pushing on the education use case, because that's where true accessibility lies. And if I'm a curious learner, then I can just go on any of these applications and uh, start my own learning journey. So those are some ideas that I want to share with, and maybe I'll let Ned follow on. I'm sorry, we still are not able to hear you. Yeah, I think we briefly heard. You want to try switching the audio or something? No. Okay. Maybe you want to try a pair of headphones?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Maybe share, I'll let you go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So these were some very insightful and fascinating thoughts, and it's very inspiring to see how AI can bridge educational divide. So if when Ned joins us, would the panel be okay with moving to the second question, because the paucity of time? So let's move to our second question, which turns the lens towards civil society organizations themselves. We know many NGOs and community organizations are stretched thin in resource and capacity. So what are the most promising areas within CSO operations, such as program design, fundraising, communication, or data management, where artificial intelligence can create tangible value? Since I believe Ned has joined, so
Can you hear me now?
yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just had my headphone. So could you please repeat the question? I think it cut off when I was joining.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what are the most promising areas within CSO operations, such as program design, fundraising, data management, where AI can create tangible value?
Okay, well, that's not so much of a technology question, but application question. And so I see AI as a sort of a tool that if you look at who's able to access it, I think it gives us a good starting point. However, because everybody can access ChatGPT. There's a free version, for example, and we can use all these frontier models. When you're actually building something significant and substantial, there is this paywall that we have to go through. That means, like, if you want more performance or more tokens or anything to build something with the AI that's substantial, then you're investing a lot of capital in, you know, just paying for tokens. So that means paid subscription if you're an individual user, or enterprise licenses if you're a company. So this paywall is actually a barrier between developing countries and developed countries. And there's a huge issue going forward, because the energy costs that's needed to support the compute resources that we need for AI to run are very expensive, and they're becoming more and more scarce, because we're trying to build here in the US and in other countries, we're trying to build multiple data centers, GPU centers to support compute. That raises the costs, and raises the cost of electricity, raises the cost of compute, because the AI is so consuming. So before we talk about any application of AI, there's this huge barrier for have-nots, developing countries, and have countries, right? Like the US. So it's not very, on the surface, it seems like it's democratizing access to education, or maybe access to skills, because then you can augment your skills with AI on the surface. When you actually start using it and start to really understand the cost of doing it, you understand it's very prohibitive to actually do something substantial. So I would see that as a first problem. And not only that, there's two schools of thought. AI will democratize and make it easier for everybody to gain education skills and become relevant in today's job market. There's other school of thought that says, because it's expensive, access is expensive for AI, then people or countries with more access will have huge disadvantage or advantage in their for themselves compared to countries that don't. And I believe we're closer to that scenario, where, you know, we are competing and investing here in the US hundreds of billions of dollars. And the reason is because we know that whoever owns the compute resources will control the future with AI and have prevailing models. So my answer is really not about how we apply AI. My answer is more about, in order to apply AI, we need to solve these inequities that exist. And I think this nature of conversation is having these embedded inequities and how we approach them, right? It's very beautiful to hear how, you know, we can enhance education and have remote access, and AI is a perfect tool for that. You know, you can have your AI buddy studying with you, helping you. There's even out-of-box research tool. If you go to ChatGPT today, it's called Study and Learn tool, and you can really ask it any questions, and it will really behave like a person would. It would teach you, it would ask you questions, it would determine your level of knowledge, and based on that, it will get you to the next step. It feels really nice to have that tool. But like I said, it's behind a paywall, and to make it accessible to many, there's a cost associated with it. So I would say, let's solve that cost first. And I'm not offering to solve it today on the call. I'm just saying that there's inherent cost to it, and because of that, companies tend to make or lose a lot of money. And because of that, this is not something that's going to be readily available for everybody. It's going to be available for those who can pay. So I'm just highlighting an issue. I'm saying that there's a huge opportunity. At the same time, if you see competitive nature of the marketplace, if you give everybody access to this powerful tool, then competition rises, because many people will have much more knowledge, much more access, and because of that, will be competitive. Smaller companies will be much more competitive compared to the larger companies. So there is effective control that exists today that big companies don't want to release control, and they don't want to be in competition with thousands and tens of thousands of individuals, not just companies, but individuals that have now power to create like never before. So you have to think from that perspective how we solve that. And I believe one part of the solution is working with countries and outside of the US, I would say countries that in governments that can fund computer resources and resources that enable this cost to go down, so that we can all actually have equal access, not theoretically, but in reality. And I think that's a very important thing. I'm saying this from my own experience because we're actually building a GPU center in Southeastern Europe, in one of the smaller countries there. And we are leveraging the natural resources of that country and natural talent of people in that country to produce more sovereign cloud compute resources, so that we can do all these things that I just mentioned. I believe that's the future for other countries, especially in Southeast Asia and some areas there. We need to be able to do it ourselves and not to depend on, especially for very sensitive data, government data or private data, like in some of the countries, should not be relying on frontier models developed in the Silicon Valley, because you want to preserve your culture, you want to preserve your laws, you want to preserve your tradition, and all of that will happen if you have your own compute resources and your own frontier models eventually. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Thank you so much, Ned. Those are some incredible insights. Shaista, would you like to go ahead and showcase how TechSoup is solving the challenge as well?
Yeah, and Ned, thank you so much for that thoughtful yet very precise backdrop of the money that is needed just to build data centers alone, right? This is all, what is AI? It sits on top of data lakes. It sits on top of our ability to take masses of data and be able to store it and analyze it. I remember a conversation with a partner a long time ago when I was at Accenture, and I said there's going to be a day where we're going to walk by a Starbucks coffee, and this particular Colombian brand will be expiring, and they're going to notify me on my cell phone that there's a special on that coffee today. And he was like, we're never going to have the data resources, Shasta, for location-based services. And that it was really cool, because I think it was that article that made it to the front page of Accenture, and I was so proud of the thought leadership around it. And we had researched, and Docomo and Nokia and Telia and all these companies in the Nordic countries to come up with sort of how the future will pan out. And here we are, right, where we don't even have to type. We just sort of think about going to Goa, and then the entire Google machine knows that we're going to Goa, and all of a sudden there's messages about hotels and the best lassi even, right, or the best coconut curry in Goa. So I feel like you're absolutely right. The haves and the have-nots. Sometimes you coin this term of we're at the risk of a second digital divide. However, on one hand is sort of Stephen Hawking, where all the machines are in fact going to take over, and then on the other hand is AI is the best thing that's ever happened to humanity. And I think having a measured kind of thoughtful discussion like Ned has done for us is good. So let's be sort of realists with an optimistic attitude. And that brings me to answering your question. I do like to put the context so that all of us can understand. the role of emerging technology in the sector is so important. For civil society organizations, we have to, expand technology suites so AI can do things that individuals and communities, especially the most disadvantaged, can actually use to create efficiencies, which we so badly need, right? But what happens is that we are in a place where we say, okay, what are the functions? So TechSoup offers one of my favorite programs. It's strengthening and tiered evaluation process. We call it our STEP process. And I'm going to stick up an article in here, which has a lovely graphic that you might be able to view. And within STEP are those specific functions, some of which that you mentioned, Sheher, of governance, finance controls, legal, operation planning, risk management, data security and privacy, and sort of best practices and community engagement. All of these things that most of us as nonprofits are continuously looking to improve. And AI can be helpful. And it can be, Ned alluded to how there's sort of the tech giants, and they're investing all their dollars into AI. And then there are the beautiful sort of individual innovators and smaller companies that, are trying to get solutions out there. And that is being kind of democratized in a way, because you no longer need Python. You can go and create an app with English if you have access to English. And pretty soon, I think that will become accessible in other languages as well. So I feel like it's important to know what we can maybe do. And for example, with AI and governance, there is a wonderful company called Onboard, right? And it offers a board portal solution equipped with very nice features that make collaboration easier, and they enhance decision making, and they make voting and surveys and e-signatures just kind of non-obstacles, let's call them. And I think that does help us. If we've got an AI assisted tool that's sort of powered by ChatGPT, and it's encrypted with Microsoft Azure, all of these things, like Ned said, will cost some. But the smaller of these tools could potentially be used, maybe not by the smallest of the organizations, but Khan Academy, Make-A-Wish, Goodwill. Many nonprofits are integrating, for example, Onboard, right? Similarly with financial management, there's one other thing, we think of AI, and I really encourage each of us to stop kind of thinking, oh, I kind of having imposter syndrome about it, because how many of you use AI? That's a good question for the audience, right? How many of you are using AI in some capacity? And maybe you can put in chat, in which capacity. But it's sort of, useful. Like sometimes I feel like AI is using us. And the finance example is a really great way to sort of put that to light, right? We don't have to go seeking it. Intuit, for example, which is a tool that a lot of United States organizations, it's one of the most popular tools at TechSoup, with QuickBooks and way to manage your money. And it's building in AI tools within itself continuously. So for those of us that use it, there are little things to make it tangible. It'll be able to grab your tax data from the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, which is our tax collecting authority, and it'll populate your next year's taxes. It'll be able to do that. The same thing with, all your financials. So if you've got money with Fidelity or Vanguard or with Goldman Sachs, you can just provide your account number, it'll link to that data, grab it. Goodbye to your privacy from your government, but it'll sort of magically make all these data interoperability things happen. And it'll start to predict things too, and it'll sort of help you figure out how you can save tax money and how you can use this or that to improve your financial management, if that's what you're working on. So I think there's, to be cautious. The article that I shared gives you a lot more planning tools like Asana, which is, there's a free version, or Data Miner for risk management. I mean, Data Miner is unbelievable to be able to do disaster relief, which that in the global south, when disaster strikes, we just don't have the infrastructure to be able to help humans as fast as we would like. So it's important to go in and say, okay, which free versions can I use, and how can I go beyond ChatGPT? And I think that'll be very, very helpful for all of us that are in the global south.
Can I, if I may add something to this? I wanted to mention in the beginning, but I had an issue with the headphones with sound, that I'm organizing. I'm a key organizer in the international hackathon that's going to happen this weekend. While we did close our applications, I want to take a moment just to show you and explain what's behind this, because it goes directly into this equalizing, like making equity access to everybody, where opportunity, where talent, as you know, is in every country. And we may not know about talent. Opportunity, like I said earlier, is not everywhere. It's really concentrated. So my idea was to have a way to bring opportunity to talent wherever the talent is. And so I came up with this idea of an international hackathon that's happening both online and in person in selected cities. So if I may share my screen and just show for a second the website for the hackathon. Again, the applications are closed. We are very oversubscribed for this one, but next one's going to be in like maybe 3 months. And I'd like people just to know about this. So if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to show the website.
Oh, I'm
Let me know
excited.
if you see it. Thank you. So this is the website, and you can I can share it with everybody in chat if you're interested to take a look at that later. Here it is. So the idea here is, we have multiple cities where people can join in person, but many more people can join online anywhere in the world. These are the organizers. This is one of my companies called Sarai, a company that's building an AI center in Southeastern Europe. And these are other companies that are our partners. Some of them are US companies, some of them are international. This is a nonprofit. This is also a nonprofit. These two are US companies, and one of them is an incubator, one of them is an ecosystem builder. Just to skip quickly, we can only do this with sponsors because it requires a lot of compute resources to pull this off, and so every participant will get compute resources to build solutions. We will announce challenge at the beginning of the hackathon, so everybody can have the fair chance at developing solution. Everyone starts at the same time with the same information and same resources. So these are all our sponsors. And now we also have judges who we actually feature. So these are some of our judges that we want to feature. These two founders are both from MIT happens to be, and they're in A16Z accelerator. And we feature their path. And these two MIT students, they're currently at MIT, are top placed at MIT Hackathon, and we feature their story with a little video in the background. And then we have a slew of judges, international, team of judges that you can see from various top companies, as well as top universities that we bring together. And we're very proud of the diversity we have there. And then we go into the hackathon details. So we also have some nice featuring offices in different cities. As you can see, we have multiple cities and their offices featured here online, so people know where they're held. Anyway, this is just a short introduction. I don't want to go on and on, but this is one way to really do something specific to enable people that would otherwise never have access to such an international competition to be able to participate and be noticed by some of these judges in some of these companies, because a lot of these sponsors are interested in hiring talent worldwide, and they approach us because they want to be able to, meet these people, and eventually some of these teams may even present to investors. So we may have actually at the end of the hackathon maybe top 5 teams pitch to a pool of investors. So these are all the opportunities, and every participant in our hackathon is going to get something. So just by virtue of being selected to participate, you will get something from our sponsors. And obviously I didn't show this on the website, but you can see it yourself. There are cash prizes plus the credits and other perks, such as tickets to conferences and other things that you can get for the winning teams and top placing teams. So
Thank you so much, Ned, about the hackathon. So Abhijit, would you like to take the question?
Yes, I can just, I think, wrap in what Ned and Shiasta have already shared. I think one, and I'd like to differ on one point though, is while we do talk a lot about the compute being utilized and how that causes the divide, I believe that a lot of these smaller models are getting much stronger by the day. And this is something that we've seen in practice and have actually implemented it. Uh, you look at any of the the gamma models or the llama sub 3 billion models that can run now on desktop PCs or consumer hardware, where now you don't need expensive devices or even the internet to run these AI solutions in a way. And thus one experiment that we did was taking in a lot of like close to about 18 terabytes of education data, converting that into a fine-tuned data set, like fine-tuning data set, and then run 8 billion llama on top of it to actually build a specific education focused offline llama model that could run on consumer devices. And that's where I see democratization happening. Uh, and these are some of the ways where obviously it requires a certain technical expertise to be able to reach that level. But these kind of things are now getting easier by the day and in the hands of people out there. In response to the specificity that you shared, share in terms of the use cases, I think there are, like Shasta shared very well, some of the different levels where these tools can be used. And one personal hack that I'd love to share is I've been tinkering with these tools. Again, no coding expertise, but I went on the 11 Labs net showed that, and that's where it sparked the thought that I use the 11 Labs Agent AI to actually build a volunteer screening tool and build that in a span of 3 hours, where I could just send now a link to someone who wants to join, like wants to volunteer for the effort. And this tool, the AI agent, does like a real-time interview with them and tries to understand what they're doing. So practical ideas like these, wherever we see as CSOs, where our operational capacities are getting strained, that's exactly where AI actually comes to our rescue, and we can leverage some of these no code, low code tools that are readily available for us to really deep dive and convert that into use cases that we want to solve for. So with that, I think again, multiple examples like that, but that's just one practical thing that I ended up playing with. And it, in the real world, it worked quite well.
Thank you so much, Abhijit, for sharing your thoughts. So we're only left with 12 minutes for the session. I would open the floor for any questions or comments. I see we have one question in the chat, but anybody in the room can please raise your hand and ask our panel of experts. So the question is by Krutika Eswaran, who says, I'm asking in the context of the current AI, specifically generative AI, being energy intensive. So how would you choose where AI is absolutely necessary in terms of utilization?
I could take that up.
Yeah.
So I have two thoughts towards it. One is I think AI is being actively woven into everything that we're doing today. So there's sorts of no escape from it. And how do you choose? I think given like the Ghibli art trend that we had, people are using it for random stuff. So you can't really stop people from using AI or tell them where to use AI. I think the way to look at the problem is how do you solve it with lower resources or switch resources where you could have more energy like alternative energy sources that are powering it. We see now a lot of, like as Ned shared and a couple of others, where we're looking at solar and a couple of other sources being that are powering these models or these huge data centers. There's one I think news that a lot of these big like the likes of Facebook and Microsoft are submerging data sets now in the Arctic just to resolve for cooling costs that are there, and using the natural resources and the process there to cut down on the energy cost associated with it. So maybe the way to look at it is how do we better use it and what alternatives can we find um, uh, to power that effort? Because today I think, and everyone in the room can definitely agree to it, is these tools are amplifying our possibilities, like the human effort there. And I think we need to see how we can keep doing 5x 10x of what we're doing today uh, in much better ways.
I can chime in. That's excellent, you know, sort of being creative in making machines work with our earth, Abhijit. That's thoughtful and forward thinking of you. Kritika, you know, one thing that I make this choice for myself, for my organization, for the organizations that I serve all the time. And you know, when you're in the private sector, I used to work for Tom Davenport. Often he's called the father of AI. He's written lots of books around AI and data. And, you know, his philosophy is, look, don't do one thing at a time. Look at AI from an enterprise level perspective, right? The organization-wide view. And I would augment that because for us within the nonprofit sector, we're continuously saying, okay, I can do either this or that. The guiding principle should always be your mission, right? Which investment on AI is most likely to have the best possible impact? Because we're here for impact. We're here for our communities. And if you can kind of make your mission your North Star, then the technology is just supporting your mission. So if you find, and the step method that TechSoup offers gives you a really good way to say, okay, be self-reflective and say, where is my organization most broken and can use data to inform decisions, or give me speed, or give me an opportunity to really make a difference. And then go and invest in that and make the case with your board and help them to understand. The other thing, I'm going to just stick in another tool, and this goes back to Abhijit, your kind of advice on being very practical about this. You know, I just actually put together this piece, and my marketing team put it up just yesterday. So it's here for you, and I really ask for your help. There's 20 of us here. I'm gonna soon post it on my LinkedIn, and if you can share it, I feel like this is the message we need to get to our nonprofits, because TechSoup's doing so many accessible, cool things with AI. And those of you that are here in this room, you give me hope because you care to learn, you're asking the questions, and you're here to listen and learn, just like I am. And we can share with people that there is this gamut of resources that TechSoup is developing to bring the sector to the love of technology. And we have the trust in the sector because we've been around for 40 years, right? So that is a great starting place, is to kind of go in and say, and I'm going to put another piece that I wrote for Nonprofit Times, because how many people have an AI policy in place already for your organization? Because, we want responsible AI, right? We don't want to just go helter-skelter AI and have its unintended consequences then remind us that we made mistakes and that we could have done better. And I mean, it's okay to make mistakes. I love mistakes. That's why we have the big pink erasers, right? But responsible AI does begin with your own AI policy. So I'm going to put this here too, to give you a little bit of foray into how to develop responsible AI policy. And that's a great place to start, because when you think about, okay, how, do I have sensitive data? Like if you're serving organizations that manage domestic violence, for example, you have to really protect the survivor data. You can't, if you're serving organizations that serve children with diseases, in a world of AI, you really have to protect that data, because we don't really know how insurance companies are going to use data once we get all this genetic data about diseases and about who has which disease. And will that lend itself to discrimination, or will humanity come together and say, no, we believe in access for all, and we're going to honor those with disabilities, right? So we're in a precarious kind of transition where all of our sort of private information can be very helpful. For example, with biomarkers, we talked about, one of the things you guys had said that you wanted to discuss in this is health. And I'm going beyond the scope of the question, but, today you can determine immunotherapy for lung cancer. This happened to a friend of mine, where you would have gone to the oncologist office and they would have said you have 3 months. But instead, the oncologist, by the time my friend got to the oncologist's office, they had already ordered the medication and said, look, your biomarkers are compatible, but we have to move quickly. It takes a while. And I made the treatment decision for you. I hope you don't mind. I mean, that in the United States is a really big deal, because the treatment decisions are very much in the hands of the patient, not the doctor. But this doctor made an exception because speed was of the essence. She had the data. And all of a sudden, my friend had 2 extra years in his life. So the possibilities to serve humanity through AI are immense. And it is up to us as humans then to make it responsible.
Terrific. We have Muzammil Khan. Would you like to ask the question?
Hi, yes. So my question is about responsible AI. So there's this whole ethos of innovation that big companies like big tech go where like move fast and break things. And on the polar opposite of this ethos is first do no harm imperative of responsible AI. So what concrete processes can these big tech companies and startups take to make responsible the default for AI and not just a roadblock or some point to just consider?
Sorry, could you repeat the last sentence that you said of the question?
Yeah, what concrete steps can big tech take to make responsibility and responsible AI the default and not just a roadblock or an option to consider while shipping out products, AI products?
Uh,
I can
well,
take that if you, or Ned, do you want to take it?
I'm not sure if Ned is
Ned's
around.
not in the room.
Okay, I can take a stab at it if you like, Abhijit, and maybe you could chime in or we could take it together. But to
Sure.
me, Muzammil, what a wonderful question, right? What steps can the tech giants take? And you know, I went to the School of Foreign Service in Georgetown, and in multi-sector kind of collaboration and discussion was really at the forefront of much of our education. And one of the things that I learned is everybody has a role in society, right? We are organized in most of the world as a capitalistic functioning society. But capitalism has its failures, right? That's why we have monopoly laws. That's why we have regulation. So the role of the company is to innovate, is to go out there, is to race, and you see them, race to increasing shareholder value. That's really their role. Their role is also to create jobs. Their role is also but basically they are here to make profit. So I don't think that we can really practically enforce them to be responsible. I think some will be responsible and some will not be responsible. I think they will always aim to be responsible. I think, it's good to have the perspective that humans are basically good because we're in this time, and I think we're going to be competing with machines. So I'm hopeful we'll have a reason to unite. But I think that role of responsibility really lies with our governments and with the United Nations and with the intergovernmental collaborations. And the role to fight for it is in our hands. It's in civil society to say, because we're going to see the impact. If people lose jobs to AI, we're going to see those that were really at the lowest, the ones without the problem-solving skills, the ones without the tech skills, where machines are taking their jobs. And we're going to have to fight for them because often they will not have a voice. So I think we've got to kind of be very realistic about the different roles. We need to vote so that our government does create policies for responsible AI, and we need to hold them accountable to do so. We need to advocate so that we can force the discussions and share our insights and our offerings, because we are very, very important as civil society to preserve the way that the world works and the manner in which capitalism fails and how we capture humans. But to leave it to just the companies, I think that would be a mistake. I think they have their role, and their role is to innovate and compete, and their survival depends on it. So it's not even like they're bad guys. It's just the reality of how they function, right?
Well, absolutely. I think in the interest of time, we're already a little over. I'll just take a quick minute to close and share comments. So I think in a way, Shasta, I disagree to a couple of points that you've said, and in the interest of also this discourse that we are having, I believe that especially from a technology standpoint, yes, there are guardrails that these models are being built upon. and that's where the technical responsibility of how the models perform is coming inherently. The way to further enforce it is to ensure that more and more models are open source versus closed source, that we really understand how they operate. The likes of, Llama or others that are putting it out there for users to dissect them and contribute towards building them better is something that's more valuable versus closed source models that don't give you an insight. Though the likes of OpenAI and others are making efforts to ensure that their uh, uh, like the guardrails and the security measures are being publicly made aware in terms of how they operate, and thus reducing on that bias aspect of it or the responsibility piece of it. On the operation side, definitely, like how it impacts the human nature of it, from jobs to skills and other aspects of it. I think that's where we need to look at it in a way, is how do we prepare the economy and the coming generation to be more AI enabled and uh, be aware of this change rather than being at crossroads towards the technology progress of it. One of the things at just one point that Ned shared, which I wanted to highlight on, is as part of Catalyst and the digital collaborative, what we are also focusing on is making a lot of these technology solutions more feasible and more easily accessible. And that's one effort that with TechSoup we are enabling within the community, that how do more people get to know that these tools exist, and through the TechSoup's wide network and offering, they are able to access them, as well as create a digital layer where several of these solutions which are behind paywalls are now being accessible to uh, especially CSOs, so that they benefit from the technological expertise and not be left behind in the race, and not just as Net really, I think, crystallized that problem statement is uh, not be relied on only compute heavy resources or organizations that are able to afford it, but then truly democratize that space and that access for them. And Sheher, maybe for you to close.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shaista and Abhijit. I believe Ned had to drop off, for sharing your time, insights, and inspiration with us today. We're 6 minutes over time. So thank you again for who have joined us on day 4 of Catalyzing Change Week. I hope to see you tomorrow for day 5. Until then, keep catalyzing change wherever you are. So bye.
Thank you so much again for having me, you two. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.